Hello guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Welcome to EDU 5105, Interprofessional Education in the Health Professions. My name is Rachel Grant, and I'm going to be your professor in our online course this semester. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself in a few minutes, but first I want to talk a little bit about our course. EDU 5105 is an asynchronous course, so that means we don't have a scheduled class time. All of my presentations are going to be recorded, like this one, and you'll be able to review them at your convenience. And I only just found out that I was going to be teaching this course for sure today. So my syllabus and Brightspace are going to be under construction for the next week or so while I'm finalizing the course. For example, I may change up some of the readings, I might revise some of my assignments, but I will get you the syllabus as early as possible because I know some people like to get a head start on some readings or at least get a good sense of what they're going to be doing this semester. So some of the topics we'll be covering this semester include, of course, a general overview of what interprofessional education is and what interprofessional collaboration is. We're going to talk a little bit about theories and discourses that are related to IPE. We're going to talk about barriers and conflicts in interprofessional practice and education, which usually is a class favorite. We'll also cover a little bit about patient involvement, and we're going to talk too about the more practical side of actually going about teaching and assessment within IPE. The assignments in this course are quite open-ended, so you're going to have a lot of opportunities to tailor your work and your readings to your own interests and your work context. But we can talk more about assignments once I finalize the syllabus. And you do not have to purchase a textbook for this course. In this course, we're going to be reading a lot of online articles, book chapters, all accessible through the U Ottawa library. And sometimes I'll also be assigning some YouTube videos as readings for some of our modules. However, I do recommend that you pick up a copy of the 7th edition of the APA Style Guide if you don't already own one of these. So now that I've hopefully alleviated some anxiety for some of you about this course, I'll tell you a little bit about me and why teaching this course is so exciting for me. So I was born on the west coast of British Columbia, and I've always been very interested in healthcare, and this was reflected in a lot of the drawings I did as a child, like these ones. So it really wasn't a huge shock to my parents when I decided to go into nursing. So I have a Bachelor of Science in nursing, and I used to work in a primary care clinic and in obstetrics. I've also actually worked as a care aide in long-term care when I was going through nursing school. And another area that I've always been very interested in for a long time has been education. So as a teenager, I was a lifeguard and a swim instructor. I was also a camp counselor for a little while for a science and Lego day camp, which was so much fun. And then once I got into university, I started TAing freshman nursing labs once I was in the second year nursing. And it actually rivaled my job as a day camp counselor, which is tough to do because it was pretty fun just getting to do science experiments all day with kids and play with Legos. So after graduating, I moved out here to Ontario to do a Master's of Nursing at the Toronto Metropolitan University, previously known as Ryerson University. And at the time, I thought I was going to be a nurse educator, but the IPE course that I took during my master's completely changed the trajectory of my career. Now, I had never envisioned myself going into research or academia. Undergrad research courses, at least for me, didn't do the greatest job of highlighting how cool research can actually be. So that's why I picked a course-based master's degree, much like the MEd program we have here. So for my program, I did extra courses, much like our MEd program, and then with TMU's program, at the end of the program, we also did a practicum placement. And so I chose to do this instead of a traditional thesis. But after my IPE course, I had so many questions. Now, I was completely on board with IPE and interprofessional collaboration, but I wanted to know why this wasn't more common, and why are we educated in such rigid silos before being chucked out into the realities of clinical practice where suddenly we were expected to be able to function as a cohesive team. So armed with a whole bunch of new terminology and theories, I started looking up things at the university library, but so many of my questions didn't have answers. So instead of doing my practicum placement at the end with a nurse educator, which is my plan A initially, I ended up doing my practicum placement with my IPE professor, Dr. Joanne Goldman, at U of T's Faculty of Medicine. And there I did some research on IPE within the nursing literature. And I actually got to publish my capstone project in the Journal of Interprofessional Care, which was very cool. And I was hired to work there after my master's degree as a research associate. And then later I got recruited up to U Ottawa for a similar position. And I worked for a bit, and then I decided to do my PhD here at U Ottawa in the health professions education stream. By this point, I was going to a lot of conferences that were more focused on education, and I found that I didn't have a whole lot to contribute to discussions as soon as learning theories entered the conversation. So hence picking a PhD in education rather than nursing. So in total, I've been working in research for a little over a decade, and I've been teaching for a little longer than that. And most of my work has been either explicitly interprofessional or has some sort of implicit interprofessional or interdisciplinary element. Likewise with my teaching, I don't think I've taught anything intra-professional or only involving one professional group in about 8 years. So in short, I'm a former nurse who now does research in family medicine that has interprofessional components, but I'm in a faculty of education. And getting to teach this course always feels so surreal to me, because it was a master's level IPE course that set me on this weird and crazy journey that I never could have dreamed of. And now here I am teaching a master's level IPE course. But enough about me, I want to know about you. So for my students this semester, below the video in our Brightspace classroom, there's going to be a survey called Getting to Know You. So this survey is meant to give me a sense of who's in the class, what you're hoping to learn this semester, and how I can best structure our learning teams this semester. This survey is worth 1% of your final grade, so you can technically have 1% in the course before the course actually starts. So that's all from me for now. Keep your eyes peeled for updates on Brightspace, and I look forward to learning with you all this semester.